Good afternoon. It's Friday, December 28th. I'm Herman Green with the Midday News. A special welcome to those of you watching online at onespotmedia.com. As preparations continue ahead of Tuesday's ban on some plastics, there is growing uncertainty among business operators about its implementation. Come January 1, the ban will apply to the importation, manufacturing, distribution, and use of single-use plastic bags, plastic straws, and styrofoam products. Chairman of Wisynco Group, William Mafood, says the authorities have failed to effectively communicate with business operators about the impending ban. Wisynco, which manufactures straws and styrofoam, says it has faced several obstacles in getting information as it seeks to be compliant. Mr. Mafood says the company has applied to the National Environment and Planning Agency, NEPA, for an extension to finish its raw material used for manufacturing plastic straws.
We are also trying to get in touch with NEPA about the current raw materials and so forth that we have in stock, and they are not sure. Every time we speak to them, they tell us we have to speak to the ministry. So there has been some confusion because companies who are in manufacturing, who have raw materials that they imported from a year ago, I think it's ridiculous to ask them to dump the raw materials and their packaging. So as far as I'm concerned, once we get a response from NEPA, and the ministry will be guided.
Mr. Mafood says he doesn't believe the 3-month period for the implementation of the ban was practical.
And that's one of the reasons why Senator Samuda, who was on the Plastics Committee himself, he was actually a part of the committee that recommended a 5-year implementation on the ban. That committee was chaired by Paris Leoai Jr., and their recommendation was a 5-year implementation. The government saw it necessary to try and implement it faster, and I just think weren't prepared, didn't have all of the machinations and the mechanics in place to implement the ban for January 1st.
However, when asked if he thinks the government should push back the implementation date for the ban, Mr. Mafood said no. He says that would be an embarrassment. The Ministry of Health says it has stepped up its vector control program amid an increase in the number of dengue cases seen at the Bustamante Hospital for Children over the Christmas period. In a statement Thursday night, the Health Ministry said it has also seen an increase in several dengue cases and other viral illnesses. It's why the ministry is now assuring the public that efforts are being made to deal with dengue. Mosquito-plagued communities like Gregory Park in Portmore St. Catherine will be targeted for increased vector control and surveillance initiatives. The ministry says that community has a high population of the Aedes aegypti mosquito, which carries the dengue virus. In addition, the ministry has disclosed that vector control workers have increased the number of visits to communities searching for and destroying breeding sites. Meanwhile, Health Minister Dr. Christopher Tufton is in Gregory Park, St. Catherine, as vector control activities have heightened in the community in the wake of the increase in cases of dengue. The Ministry of Health says the community has a high population of the Aedes aegypti mosquito, which is the vector for dengue.
Right at this time, we have first installed Aedes aegypti larvae inside of this drum. In the next few days, you understand, they'll put on ton pupa, and after that, in the next day or so, they have on wings to can fly out, and then they bite the neighbors, them, and then they come back here and lay again. You understand? And after that, now the process continues. So this drum at least can contaminate the whole of the Portmore region, especially Dover and Stephen Avenue, because this one drum alone can cause at least multiple cases.
A warning this afternoon to the government to speed up its process of dealing with issues affecting the environment. The call came from environmentalists at a recent Capri forum at the University of the West Indies, where it was noted that if the issues are not addressed with much needed urgency, the debilitating effect of public health could be catastrophic.
There is too much emphasis on process and not outcome.
That's comments from Capri affiliate researcher and environmental activist Diana Macaulay. She was addressing a recent Capri forum which looked at an environmental regulatory framework for Jamaica. According to Mrs. Macaulay, what's needed is a bipartisan approach to deal with the effects of climate change. She says if there isn't a change in how governments and citizens act towards the effects of climate change, the situation could get worse. Managing Director of Forest and Associates Denise Forrest says the government now more than ever needs to fully enforce the laws and policies which are already in place.
We talk about new this, new that, but if we were not to devise any single new policy or any single new law, we could actually be further ahead.
She further noted that stiffer fines are needed to deal with breaches of environmental laws. For his part, Minister without portfolio in the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation, Darrell Vaz, says the impediment facing the sector and Jamaica on a whole is outdated legislations.
You can't be dealing in 2018 in this day and age, in a world that's moving at this pace, using 1950 and 1960 regulations and legislation. That, accompanied with bureaucracy, is a recipe for disaster.
Minister Vaz has also given the assurance that he will be working with CAPRI and other environmental organizations in a bid to update the outdated environmental legislations. O'Shane Masters, TVJ News.
A former police officer who's been living on pension of under $2,000 per month for several decades will be moving into a new home. The former cop fell on hard times after he was seriously injured on the job in the 1970s. After hearing his story in March of this year, some members of the JCF took the initiative to assist him. The Constabulary Communications Unit, CCU, has also handed over a check for $25,000.
I would like to say a big thank you to all the persons and organizations who make this happen.
Lorenzo McGregor, now 74 years old, was shot in the head while on the job in 1976. The shooting incident happened in Olympic Gardens. At the time, he was assigned to the Mobile Reserve. He never recovered after suffering spinal injury, which affected his ability to walk. In a TVJ News follow-up now, Member of Parliament for Portland Eastern, Dr. Linville Bloomfield, has responded to concerns raised by a survivor of the 2008 market truck crash about the lack of compensation. According to Dr. Bloomfield, a system was put in place to provide funding for the dependents of the deceased of the crash. The details in this report.
A fund was set up by the National Insurance Scheme to make payments to the survivors, as well as dependents of the 14 people who died in the 2008 market truck crash in Rio Grande, Portland. That's the response from Member of Parliament for Portland Eastern, Dr. Linville Bloomfield, to the concern raised about lack of compensation. He says the immediate focus following the crash was the dependents of those who died.
I was made to understand, and I can confirm, that a fund was set up through the NIS and so on. So many persons of the 14 who died, all of them, their addresses, all the particulars were laid out. And of course, I checked and got the documentation to support the fact that the help was being given over a period of time.
Dr. Bloomfield said he was not aware that there are persons yet to be compensated.
Most of the persons who were beneficiaries, nobody, no relative or family member ever came to me to say that we are deficient or they are not maintaining. At one point there was some grumbling a few years ago, and it was addressed and the thing died away and there was nothing else. So now that I'm hearing this, I find it a little strange, but I will certainly investigate to see where the fund is and what is available.
But he maintains that the system is still in place.
There are agencies of government that were given the responsibility to manage that fund and to make sure that those persons who were deserving or worthy of the attention that they were given it. I won't state the government agencies at this point in time, but I'm sure it is public knowledge, and I'm sure it has been put out there in the public space anyway.
On December 19, 2008, a market truck transporting vendors and their produce to Kingston overturned into the Damhead River in Portland. Only 8 persons survived the crash, including the truck driver. O'Shane Masters, TVJ News.
Newly appointed Digicel Group CEO Alexander Matuszka Greifenklau is dead. Mr. Matuszka Greifenklau died suddenly yesterday while on holiday with his family in Germany. Chairman Dennis O'Brien told the staff of Digicel that they had lost a committed, hard-working and exponential chief executive. He was appointed Group Chief Executive in February this year. He succeeded Colm Delves. We go down to news in sports. Jobs within the Jamaica Scorpions setup are on the line. This according to Courtney Francis, CEO of the Jamaica Cricket Association, JCA. Mr. Francis held a meeting Thursday morning with interim coach Robert Haynes and other stakeholders. He admits that some factors affecting the team do not lie only with former coach Robert Samuels.
CEO of the JCA, Courtney Francis, speaking with TVJ Sports, says interim coach Robert Haynes was introduced to the Jamaica Scorpions players on Thursday. Haynes, who was most recently in charge of the national under-19 team, will have his acid test on January 4 when the Jamaica franchise takes on the Windward Islands Volcanoes in a day and night encounter at home in the West Indies 4-day tournament. And Francis made it clear that he expects to see a difference from everyone involved or else.
Robert Samuels could not have been the only factor that would have impacted those performances. So therefore I made it absolutely clear to the players, along with the chairman of selectors, that they too have a responsibility and a role, and if we don't get the performance up, then they're going to lose their jobs too. It's as simple as that. As a cricketing nation, we must do better. Our players have attained a certain level of competence in the region and internationally that we ought to put in better performances. So that it's a non-negotiable.
The 54-year-old Haynes, who previously coached the senior side between 1999 and 2006 and won the Caribbean Cup in 2004 to 2005, says his approach will be multidimensional to get the players to do better.
This is also important that the JC is looking at to get a sports psychologist to work with these guys, because we need to know the mindset and how they're thinking. As a coach, it's for me also to identify the players who are coachable and who are willing to learn and to move and to go forward.
Senior pace bowler Jerome Taylor is also of the view that with so much talent in the team, they have to step up as it goes beyond the coach.
Coach, they have been trying their very best, but at the end of it all, the players are the ones that is going out on the park. So it is a case where people have to take the ownership to go out and put good performances together, back to back, and make sure that we can take home the bacon for Jamaica.
The Scorpions are lying 5th in the 6-team standings on 5 points after 1 round. All other teams, except Trinidad and Tobago Red Force, have played twice. For TVJ Sports, I am Denise Walters.
And that's the Midday News. I'm Herman Green. Please join us at 7 for the Primetime News Package. On behalf of the news, sports, and production teams, good afternoon.